afternoon. It's great to see all of you here today. My name is Kyung Yoon. I'm the CEO and founder of Talent Age Associates. We are a boutique executive recruitment and leadership consulting firm working with technology and financial services firms. Before forming Talent Age 2 years ago, I was with Heidrick & Struggles for 14 years, 6 years as vice chairman, and 6 years before that as the managing director of Asia Pacific, building and managing that region, which consisted of 10 offices throughout Asia Pacific. It is my great pleasure to introduce Phil McKinney. I'm going to do a little bit of an introduction. And I had the pleasure of finding out about Phil and talking to him about some of the work that he's doing in the innovation space. And as many of you know that Phil is known as Mr. Innovation, the guru, the gadget guy, and chief seer in the media. Now, his day job is vice president and CTO for Hewlett-Packard's personal system group. He's responsible for long-range strategic planning, as well as R&D for all of HP's PC product lines, which includes displays, mobile devices, notebooks, desktops, and workstations. In his free time, Phil reaches more than 40,000 listeners with his podcasts, has published a library of more than 150 shows on podcasts, which you can get on iTunes and Zoom. He is a regular contributor to Forbes.com and speaks all around the world to major customers and audiences like ours. He is an amazingly prolific thinker and speaker about innovation and what makes innovation work, and the importance of creativity, and fundamentally the importance of leadership in making all of this work. So I'd like to begin this fireside chat. I don't know where the fire is, but this is called the Fireside Chat. Maybe we'll try to light a fire
there
underneath the audience here now that we're sleepy after lunch. But I'd love for you to share with us what you're doing with the innovation programs inside HP.
So I'll give you a little bit of context. So 5 years, I'm actually a relative newcomer to HP. Just started year 8. I came out of retirement. I was fortunate to be one of the founders at Intelligent, cashed out. I get the silver star for timing, knowing when to cash out ahead of the dot-com bust. So I came into HP on a 1-year agreement with Carly and the senior management team at that time. I'm now there 8 years, so I guess I'm kind of unretired. This is one way to think about it. But part of my role coming in was to take a look at really how to ignite kind of the innovation culture inside of HP. 5 years ago, we formed what's called the Innovation Program Office. So in addition to my role as the CTO for Personal Systems Group, I oversee the Innovation Program Office for all of HP, so across all 120 billion revenue from an HP perspective. And the Innovation Program Office is a separately staffed and funded organization whose job is to identify, incubate, and launch adjacent or fundamentally new businesses, the new growth engines for HP. It started off as being just the Innovation Program Office for the Personal Systems Group, and now we have similar organizations across all the divisions inside of HP, each focusing in on a specific area or specific focus across the broad HP strategy. So over the 5 years, the program office has been literally coming up out of the dirt. For the last 4 years, the way the team gets measured for success is we have to launch 2 new fundamental products each calendar year for HP. The team for the last 4 years has averaged 3 new products every year coming out of the Innovation Program Office. And now we're actually looking to, the next future stage of that is how do we accelerate that? How do we actually expand that? If you think about HP at 120 billion, we fundamentally have to create a Fortune 100 company every year just to meet the revenue growth targets. So you think about the amount of revenue dollars we need to grow HP in order to meet the Wall Street expectations. So every year, November 1 starts our fiscal year. We start from 0, and we have to grow yet another Fortune 100 company over the next 12 months. And so how do you do that given your current product mix and what the role of innovation plays in that? And innovation is a critical role. Unfortunately, one of the key successes has been, even though I've run the Innovation Program Office now across 3 different CEOs, all 3 CEOs, each with their own different perspectives, have been highly supportive of those programs and having that executive support. So,
thank you. We were discussing during lunch all of the specifics regarding some of the fantastic new products that his team has been able to launch, how he really gets involved with the market firsthand and finding out about what people really want out there, including in really remote parts of the world. But before we get there, I'd like to ask Phil, so you're speaking to a lot of Fortune 500 companies today, you were telling me, and everyone seems to be focused on innovation. It's sort of the word du jour. We're all in a very fashionable place here.
As I say, it's the buzzword bingo word of the decade.
Right, so here we are, and so why do you think that is the case? And also, what can you share with us on the importance of leadership in making corporate innovation work?
So yeah, I mean, one of the things, part of my, as I jokingly say, my midnight to 4 a.m. shift is meeting with the top senior leadership for major HP customers. So that includes, Raytheon and PPG and Procter & Gamble and a whole bunch of them. And obviously some of them already have some form of an innovation agenda that they've established as part of their corporate direction, but many senior executives are still trying to figure out, how do I do this from a standpoint of a senior leadership perspective? And one of the things I share with them is everybody has a different perception of companies that you think are highly innovative. One of the things you quickly figure out is that it doesn't matter what the logo is on the business card. It doesn't matter how big you are. You can scale from a 25-person company up to a 400,000-person company. The innovation challenges are the exact same. The innovation challenges is one thing that scales very well. The whole issue of is what I refer to as corporate antibodies, all the things and all the challenges that that we run into. But what's interesting is everybody mentally gets the innovation story. I mean, there was a Harvard business case study a while back that did a survey of senior executives. I think it was Harvard. I'm pretty sure it was Harvard. Where they surveyed a bunch of CEOs, public companies, and asked them about their thoughts on innovation. 1, do you think innovation is important to your organization? 92% said yes, it's important to our organization. Next question. What do you think do you think innovation is important to your share price and to the perceptions of your business to your shareholders? 86% said, you betcha. Next question. How confident are that you've got the innovation process figured out and you've got good approach inside your organization? 34%. So people think it's important. It's important to my share price, but I don't have a clue how to do it. And it's really what you're seeing now is, I understand it's important. I see it as kind of this magic thing that kind of happens inside my organization, but I don't know how to do it within my organization. And so there's just the insatiable desire within the CEOs at the top Fortune 250 companies about understanding how other organizations do it, lessons learned, those kinds of things. And so that's primarily when I find myself doing these speaking engagements or running these I do these full-day workshops called innovation boot camps, is to help the CEOs and their senior leadership team understand the challenges of innovation and actually help them create their own process. Because there's no such thing as a cookie cutter. One size does not fit all because organizations are different and cultures are different. You need to, it's basically rip off and steal the best ideas from the people who are doing it out there the best, and then adapt it to your organization as you go, because it's not a one size fits all.
So Phil, I love what you shared with me about busting corporate antibodies, and also how a lot of these innovation groups seem to like to take themselves off, into some kind of remote place and put a wall around themselves and say, okay, here, we're the innovation group, and you guys are the plain old boring group, and you stay over here, and we're over here. And that's a surefire way to get antibodies and resistance and not invent adhere syndrome. So can you talk about how some of the practices that you have to make sort of this, seamless integration happen better?
Yeah, part of the challenge with a lot of the innovation approaches is this pirate mentality, right? So I'm going to go off, secure another building, lock off a floor, raise the pirate flag, change the key card so nobody else from the mothership can get into the front door, all those types of things. And basically, you just paint a target on that entire organization, right? The corporate antibodies come out in swarms, and their whole job is to crush this foreign entity that's invaded the organization, and they're going to do anything in their power to crush it. What we do instead with the Innovation Program Office is understanding that if you want to take advantage of something, like the scale and size of HP, 340,000 employees, 450 PhD researchers in HP labs, 45,000 engineers inside of HP, $15 billion of cash. Anybody would die for those kinds of resources, but how do you leverage that? The way to leverage it is you got to work within the organization. And so what we do with the Innovation Program Office is yes, it's a separate funded, they have a separate charter, but ultimately they know that whatever they develop has to go back into the mothership in order to take advantage of that scale and size. So they understand where the target is. But more importantly, the people that I recruit into the Innovation Program Offices are people who know the HP organization very well. In fact, I jokingly tell everybody on my team that you got hired because you're the Radar O'Reilly of your expertise. You know how to get a PO through the system in 24 hours, not 30 days. You know the people over there in manufacturing, so we can sneak something under the production run and get a prototype done in 10% of the time, taking advantage of HP's scale, those types of things. So there's a whole operations staff that supports the, quote, people who are doing the innovation side, but an entire operations staff that makes the magic happen by taking advantage of the HP organization. And actually what we find is that when we go off and ask for that help and we bring those people into the process, they're absolutely thrilled. They will drop whatever they're doing to focus on helping us on the innovation because they recognize that they're now involved in something that's cool, it's interesting, it's changing, it's going to be the great thing. So rather than pushing them away, we've gone with the approach of actually bringing them in. One of the things we do is we don't hide the innovation pipeline. We have an online system called the HP Garage, throwback to Bill and Dave. It's online. Anybody with an HP.com email address can log on to the HP Garage. They can submit an idea. They can vote on an idea, so give it a thumbs up, give it a thumbs down. They see 100% of everything that's in the pipeline. There's no secret. There's no locked door. There's nothing hidden from them. Any HP employee can see 100% of everything that's in the innovation pipeline. And what we find is teams then self-form. Hey, I'm doing something similar in this division, or I'm doing something over here. Hey, I got a personal passion about that. In HP, you can give 20% of your time to work on projects of interest. And so we have literally, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of hours coming into the Innovation Program Office, people giving their 20% time to work on projects that they're passionate about and they're interested in. So for us, it's less about, I'm not a big believer in locking it off and borrowing the door and us versus them, because again, it just antagonizes the corporate antibodies. For us, it's really about having that transparency and allowing any HP employee to, one, come up with an idea, lead an idea, participate in an idea, criticize an idea, or help an idea actually get all the way through the process.
Great. So you told me that through 3 CEOs, you have not had your budget cut one iota or even touched.
Correct.
Nobody even thinks about this. And your secret is being able to get products out there that people can see and touch and create success. And you're not doing the core thing, you're doing this around non-core products, right? So
correct.
Can you give us an example of a product that you introduced and the dynamics of that and the challenges of trying to get something out there from idea to prototype to manufacturing out into the market in
24 to 36 months, start to finish. Typically, we like to do it in 24, but we really average more like 36 when you think about the total time.
But that's fast.
It's fast. Well, it's fast. That's the whole point. Otherwise, it turns into a research project, and then people get satisfied just doing research. As I constantly remind my teams, an idea without execution is a hobby, and I'm not in the hobby business. It's about execution. So like I said before, we average 3 new products a year coming out of the Innovation Program Office that get launched, full launch from HP Products. The most recent one is one we just launched actually just this last December. So I've already got my first one for 2011. I've already punched my ticket for one. I only got one more to go to meet my objective. A project called Dream Screen. It's available in India. It's a project that we actually started 3 years ago looking at emerging markets. In the PC industry, the automatic assumption is that if you want to sell PCs into emerging markets, what do? Make them cheap enough. Crank the price down, make a $100 PC, boom. That's what the emerging markets need. And we said, we don't buy that. We want to go, one in my team was we don't read third-party market research studies. We actually go out and put our own eyeballs on the problem, our own eyeballs on the customer. So in this case, pick up the team. We're going to go be in India for a long time. We went to 2,600 homes. We actually lived with people. We watched their day-to-day activities. We do the observational studies ourselves. We don't do, like I said, we're not reading third-party studies. And the 2 things you find out in that case was relevancy and simplicity. It wasn't a price issue. And just think about it from a broader context of HP. 30% of the world's population has owned a PC. 70% of the world's population has never owned a PC. So HP, we're the largest PC manufacturer in the world. We have 21% market share of 30% of the population. So what prevents the other 70%? That was what was kicked off this investigation. It's not price. It's about relevancy and simplicity. They've never owned a PC. They don't even know what to do with a PC. If they got one, it's a Swiss Army knife. It can do anything. What do they do with it? And so we looked at the relevancy thing, but one of the other areas we focused in on was the fact that some fundamental barriers, beyond the fact that in certain segments of the population of the world, we still have issues of clean water and food and electricity and the basic fundamentals. But when you think about that next growing middle class, one of the biggest challenges is literacy, the ability to read and write in your own local language. And today's PC architecture with a keyboard interface, guess what? It assumes you can read and write in your local language. We don't think about it, but for that whole segment of the population, it's a barrier for them to be able to actually adopt. So all of this came out of this 3-year project where we actually developed a product. It does not have an operating system for all intents and purposes. It's designed about relevancy of what's important to those customers. In this case, education came out number 1. For instance, in India, the percentage of disposable income that families spend on the augmentation of their kids' education is 7%. Highest in the world is India. The amount of disposable income that families will spend to augment the education of their children, beyond paying tuition and books. This is tutoring, other things to augment the education, 7%. Highest in the world. So it came out as education, communication, entertainment. And entertainment for them is not Black Eyed Peas and Lady Gaga. They have no clue who they are. For them, it's Tamil music, Bollywood movies, things that are important and relevant to them. And so it was a unique model in the fact that we took HP's large scale, but you're building a product that has a very, very local feel to it. So we did the 2,600 home study. We built 500 devices, put them into people's homes, watched people use them, went back, got some of it wrong, went back, rewrote it again, put it out there again, got it wrong, went back, did it again. We went through this whole iteration process, and then we, like I said, we just launched it at the end of November, started shipping mid-December. We're in 72 cities in India. It's a product that assumes minimal literacy to use the product. It comes with, education being one, entertainment being one, communication, video calling, right? India families are suffering from the same thing we suffer from all over the world, where our kids grow up and they move away. How do you stay in contact with them? They know how to use a cell phone, because there's more cell phones in use in India than there are PCs. So for instance, we created a video conferencing system that all you need to do is know a number. And we actually create these little, almost like a fake phone number. You punch the number in and you hit the green button. Assumes no literacy in order to connect a video call. So this product is one that we did for India, but what's been really interesting is the amount of other countries that who've seen this product, who are now clamoring to get this product into their countries, tailored for their specific markets, because we think it can be the product that really does cover this digital divide. But even more interesting is the number of companies, particularly the telecom carriers here in the US, who are interested in this product. Because people who see it go, that's the first product I'd be willing to give my grandmother, right? All of us have our parents or our grandparents, and you give them the PC, and then what do you do on your weekends? You spend your weekends being the personal family CTO, helping them solve their PC problems. This becomes, we're seeing a huge amount of interest in this particular product platform. So this is just an example. This was 3 years start to finish. From the time we kicked off the project until we actually shipped the product in mid-December. It's doing quite well in India, and we've got now 9 other countries queued up where HP will be scaling that and bringing it into the rest of the market. And now that product will leave the Innovation Program Office. Now at this point, now that we've shipped and we've got it in the first country, my team will do it for the next 2 or 3 countries, and then at that point, it rolls back into the core product business groups. It'll be an entirely new category product in one of the product divisions now that'll pick up this product and carry it forward.
Great, thank you. So you're the top innovation champion and guru inside HP, but you also told me that you have innovation champions in each of the business units and throughout the company, and innovation is now a corporate culture. It's ingrained in the corporate culture. So many people doing corporate innovation have told me that communication of change initiatives and creating a common language of innovation is very challenging. So Phil, can you share with us how you've been able to sort of spread this culture of innovation and make the innovation embraced by all these innovation champions inside HP?
Well, I mean, I would view myself really as being not what I would call the innovation, the guy. Think of me as more the innovation evangelist. And evangelism, even inside of HP, is a nonstop job. Because as soon as you take the foot off the pedal, the organization automatically will revert back to doing it the old way they used to do it. It's a constant, nonstop battle. Change is an interesting thing, right? Because innovation, in fact, causes the organization to have to change. In human nature, if you go around and ask people, do you believe in change? People go, oh yeah, I'm for change. Really? Yeah, I'm for change. What's your concept of change? Well, I'm perfect. That guy needs to change. And that's the entire corporate, the corporate culture of change, right? Change is great. We need to change as an organization. I'm perfect. Everybody else around me needs to be the ones that change. And so for innovation, even inside of an organization such as HP, which has kind of this persona of being innovative, Bill and Dave, garage on Addison Avenue in Palo Alto, birthplace of Silicon Valley, right? Even in HP, it is this constant battle. And so for us, it's also about, finding those innovation champions, those people who are really passionate about it, who've got that, who have really embraced it. One, giving them the runway to go execute against. 2, do a little bit of protection, give them a little, inoculation against the corporate antibodies, because the corporate antibodies will attack. And getting executive air cover. It is about leadership. In my case, I've been at HP across 3 CEOs, but 2 executives that have been absolutely critical for the success of the innovation agendas at HP. Shane Robinson. Shane is HP's overall Chief Strategy and Chief Technology Officer. I report to Shane. And then Todd Bradley, who was the first of the HP senior executives who really embraced the Innovation Program Office approach and the model we used when we started in the Personal Systems Group when Todd first joined HP 5 years ago. So Todd was the executive who sponsored the formation of the Innovation Program Office. Without that kind of senior leadership support, you're out in the battlefield without a vest. The guys will pull the guns out and they shoot. And so you need executive leadership and people who truly understand the role of leadership. It's not about dictating it. It's not trying to control it. It's not trying to cram it into an existing process. But it really is about having that, that consistent executive leadership. And then it is about communication. It's about celebrating the rewards, the successes. So yes, we make a big deal when we launch a product that comes off the team. Interestingly enough, though, is we celebrate just as much the failures. We don't hide it. We don't try to say, okay, that one kind of goes away. Let's get the next one up on the pedestal. Because we also, for instance, our bonus structure, we pay the same bonus to the teams that generate a successful product. We pay the same bonus to the teams when a project fails. Because we want to reward the risk taking. We don't want, it's like, newspaper and you hit the dog 5 times and you pick up the newspaper and the dog flinches. I need all 340,000 of HP's employees they feel like they own the innovation agenda. It's not me, it's not Shane, it's not Leo, it's not Todd. 100% of 340,000 employees need to know they own the innovation agenda and that they can take the risks and that they're going to get rewarded for those risks. It's an opportunity for them to do something they're interested in. If it doesn't work out, great. They go back to their job and off we go. But we want to make sure we reward the risks and the successes. And the risk is, making sure that when something doesn't work out, the project doesn't, turn into a product that we ship. And believe me, we kill often. We kill a lot of projects, and we kill them early. So we want to make sure that we continually reward those people to make sure that they're willing to step up and to take those risks.
Great, thank you. So in innovation, we talk a lot about creativity and how important creativity is in creating change and innovation. We are not living in an age now where you can just press a button and do things the way the things were done before. The world is changing beneath our feet. We have to be quick on our feet. We have to figure things out. So creativity, what we call CQ, creativity quotient, which is now more important apparently than EQ or IQ. So what are your observations on how well people, teams, and organizations can enhance and strengthen their CQ?
Well, I think part of the challenge is, and I'm trying to avoid getting on my educational soapbox here, but I don't think I'm going to avoid it. I got myself in a little bit of trouble with the Obama administration, which I guess it's a good thing I wasn't here this morning, right? About some comments I made about the U.S. educational system. And just really quickly, part of the challenge that we've got, and I'm going to focus it on as a U.S. example, but albeit I talk to government leaders all over the world, is the graduates that we produce out of the educational system today. I assume that when I hire a student out of the university system, they've got the technical skills. They've got a diploma, top university, degree program. They know the technical skills. Don't question the technical skills. What's missing is critical thinking skills. We are producing the world's greatest test takers. That's actually the quote that got me into trouble, and I ended up spending a fair amount in DC trying to explain what I meant by that. But I think it's fairly obvious. I mean, we've taken the role of any form of critical thinking skills out of the educational system, and it's a rote memorization process. And so we are challenged at HP at finding and hiring people that not only have the technical skills, but bring that whole part of them that is untapped, which is their own critical thinking skills, their own creativity skills, to the table. Because for me, it's not that dollar. We talked before, my budget hasn't been cut. In the Innovation Program Office, the budget has never been touched through all the changes and 3 CEOs and The changes at the board of directors level and the economic impact to the businesses, it's never been touched. It's not a money issue. Where I am challenged and where every executive I talk to at every one of the major companies, it's not a money issue. It's a lack of really good ideas. There's two fundamental challenges that every executive deals with. The innovation gap, the need for ideas and the lack of supply, and then the innovation delay. From the time I say go, how fast can you translate that idea to something that goes on the shelf? It's the two fundamental things that are top of mind for every executive that I run into and talk to. And that innovation gap is dictated by the people, the organizations, the culture, the level of support from senior executives, all of that plays a key component. But one of those key components is how do you help people realize that everybody inside of an organization has a role to play on the creative economy within the organization. At HP, we've been fairly successful. I run a workshop we call Innovation Boot Camp. It's a one-day session. I teach it. We bring in employees, and it's really about helping employees unleash their own personal creativity. To learn the fact is, creativity is not a gift from God. It's not that I'm blessed with it and you're not. Every one of us is creative. It's a skill you can learn, a skill you can practice, and a skill you can become proficient at. And in one day, I can transform anybody. Anybody in this room, spend one day with me, and I'll change your entire perspective on your own ability to be highly creative in your current job and your current role, even on, in whatever areas. And so for us, it's about how do we ignite and unleash the whole creative potential within the employee base of HP. It's gotten to the point now, for instance, I walk into the HP cafeteria in Cupertino, which is where my office is based out of, and there's a guy in the kitchen, honest to God, he's a cook in the HP cafeteria, right, who's been working for the last, I don't know how many months on a design for a new keyboard scaled for the size of kids' hands. Because kids under the age of 3 have a real problem using the traditional keyboard that comes with a PC. And he's just got this passion. But he's a cook in the cafeteria at HP Cupertino. And he went through, he's heard about the innovation programs, he's seen the output, he's pitching ideas. So it's really about how do you unleash that.
That's fabulous. So I want to make sure that we have some time for Q&A. So I'd like to wrap up with one last question, which is, what are the key traits of successful innovation leaders?
When I'm recruiting people that are going to become part of the innovation program office, whether it's people we hire from the outside, which to be quite honest is probably less than 25% of my team, 75% of my team come from within HP. I mean, that's the benefit of HP in the fact that I've got 340,000 employees to choose from. But the key trait that I look for is what I call T-shaped individuals. So what do I mean by T-shaped individuals? One is they have some form of technical expertise in an area. So Mickey Calkins, who's one of probably my top innovation program managers, managing an idea from literally nothing on a piece of paper until it ships out the door. But her expertise is in human factors. She's a human factors expert, world-renowned, right? So she brings a very deep expertise, but if you look at her career, she's worked in sales, she's worked in marketing, she's run technical teams, she used to be a programmer, she's a human factors expert, she was a management consultant. So it's about having that breadth, understanding the end-to-end. You can either be a very, very deep individual, but in this case, it's very much creating this horizontal. I mean, in fact, in my case, I'm a software engineer by training, high-performance pattern recognition, University of Illinois. But my first job, I got recruited by a guy by the name of Bob Davis, who's renowned. He's the original 60s and 70s in the early days of software. And it was the first advice and best advice I ever got from my mentor, which was, you can be the world's greatest software engineer, and you'll spend the next 30 years of your career being a software engineer. He goes, it's about creating the breadth. He put me, I was in a sales, here I am, just out of college, and I'm doing sales. I spent 6 months on a sales team, bagging quota. Then I was in finance. Then I was in marketing. Best best advice I ever got from a mentor. And this is what we look for. I look for people who've got T-shaped characteristics. I'm looking for the breadth and variety of industries, and I'm looking for key technical or key expertise areas that help build out the overall quality of the team.
That's great. And passion.
And passion is everything for me. I mean, in fact, this morning I put a tweet out. It's getting a little bit of traffic here, which is, passion will make up for lapses in technical skill. Because I can teach the skill. What I can't do is instill passion. And so when we look at the innovation champions, the people who come to us with the ideas, passion is the number one metric I look for. If I go back and look at projects that were successful or projects that failed, projects that the odds of a project being successful goes up orders of magnitude if I've got a highly passionate innovation champion. An innovation champion, in my mind, is that person who's standing on my desk with their hair on fire. This is the thing. They're going to do anything and everything for this idea now to make it successful. Now, the reality is innovation champions typically are not very good at managing. They're not very good at directing. They got passion. They lack finesse, all right? And I'll tell you, I probably spend half my time helping the innovation champions refine the pitch, because they got to make a pitch. They got to make a pitch to a group of executives who review the ideas, and we select which ones get funded. So we spend a lot of time coaching them on how to craft the pitch, how to sell the story, how to convey the vision, And I jokingly refer to it, I said the unique challenge they have, and it's probably the same case in this room, given you guys all see pitches all the time, is when you've seen so many things, someone get calloused over time, because I've seen this is the 50th time I've seen this idea come before me, right? And what I refer to in HP is we suffer from a little bit of ADD executives. They'll give you 10 minutes. If you don't catch them in the first 10 minutes, their brain's off, thinking about, what they're going to have for lunch. And so we spend a lot of time helping these champions refine the pitch because that will make or break their idea. But then we build management teams around them. Understand the role of a champion versus the role of a structure that can translate an idea and turn that into a successful product. And like I said, we've got a model that works well with HP. And what I'm not saying here is, every organization should just adopt our model because we've got it figured out. It doesn't work that way because every organization is different. Steal, rip off, borrow, whatever ideas from the best players and adapt it to the organizations.
That's terrific. Thank you so much. We have time for a few questions. The mic, please. Thank you. Jim?
Thanks, Kyung. I'm interested, Phil, in two questions, I suppose. How many of your innovation units are based in the US versus the rest of the world? Mm-hmm. And then equally, if you look at the sector, where your main competitive threats might come from, how many of them coming from the existing sector or the existing competitors, or where and which sectors are you actually thinking might prove to be a competitive threat to therefore affect your innovation team?
Okay. So the innovation team started off in the US. We now have innovation teams in Taiwan and in APJ as a regional team. We'll be opening up a European team here relatively soon. At the same time, though, if you look at the mix of people on my team, it is a global team. So we have people from all over the world. And one of the key criteria for us is diversity, not diversity from gender, but we look at diversity from where did people grow up as kids, where did they go to college, socioeconomic, when they were growing up relative to where they're at now, language skills, because it's really about also big focus is cultural sensitivities. You can't observe to understand the opportunities if you don't understand the cultures that you're going into. So we do what we call trend safaris. So we pick up teams and we'll go into part of the world and we'll spend a significant amount of time running these trend safaris, looking for what's happening, what's not being reported, what is it you get on the ground that you don't see. In fact, I was jokingly saying, I was just in, talking about timing. I was in Cairo on Christmas Day and the day after Christmas. Now, technically I was on vacation, but my family now has figured out that whenever we travel, I'm always on my trend safari. So I was doing a lot of research with local HP teams in Egypt. So it's kind of apropos the timing on that, wasn't it? So we've got teams, like I said, in Taiwan, and in APJ, and in the US. We're opening up one in Europe. I'm looking to do one also in Africa because we think Africa is going to be a huge emerging market when you think of the growth of the middle class that's happening. However, economic and political stability becomes a key criteria. With regards to where we think new opportunities come into, part of the work that we do in the Innovation Program Office is a project we call Megatrends. So we do this on an annualized basis, starts in March, we go through December. And we look at not just technology trends, it's actually a small portion of it, but we look at economic, socio-structures, political structures. We look at a wide range. In fact, we track 55 trends to look at what are those things that are going to cause fundamental shifts in our customers' lives, and where could potentially the role of technology play in improving their day-to-day lives. And so there's a whole segment in that space, and we could actually spend the next hour just talking about what's going to be in the megatrends. So I'll hold off getting into the detail on that.
We have time for one or two questions if they're short.
Yeah, Martin from Stanford. I'd like to have a follow-on on the answer you just gave, which is, do you distinguish or allocate certain type of research to certain geographies by certain skills, or you just go, or even to the point where you compete from one geography and have a dual program running on the same thing, or how do you do that?
We don't do innovation competitions internally where we create two teams and have them compete. For us, it's about really just identifying those best ideas. So every year we look at about 2,000 raw ideas. We boil that down to about 150 that we do deep investigations on. I fund about 20 in the first gate. We have a 4-stage gated funding model. So that's about 20 or so. We boil that down to about 12, 6, and then ultimately 3 that come out the far end of the funnel. And there's different funding levels and different criteria at each of those gates that go through. So for us, we may have 5 ideas coming from different geographies. We'll pull those teams together and aggregate that up really at that stage of when we're funding the initial 20 ideas. If we see that we've got 3 ideas coming from 3 different parts, we'll actually aggregate that up and run that as a single program.
That's great. I think it's time. We have 1 minute, so if somebody has a really quick question, you can ask it. Otherwise, thank you very much for a wonderful conversation.
Great, thank you.